New Game Plus has just dropped for the Callisto protocol, which seems poorly timed with the release of the Dead Space remake because it further illuminates how cavernous the difference in reception has been between the two. However, I did want to run through the game more powered up when I first finished it, and it's a good distraction whilst I mull over whether or not to buy the remake. I still think it's such a shame that we couldn't get a fresh instalment rather than a remake, and the fact that everybody is raving about the additions to the game, like the exploration, the new gore system, speaks to that. But I also know if this game doesn't sell well enough to secure the future of the franchise, I'll feel really guilty that Dead Space is gone for good. It's a conniving bind for EA to put fans of the series in. I'm also aware that no one cares and is happy to get remakes until the end of time, so if you can't beat them, shoot them. Shoot them in New Game Plus because that's much more enjoyable. Replaying through the start of Callisto, I was reminded of something that really bothered me which I didn't cover in my initial video. It's something that I think really detracts from the experience and proves why Dead Space was far better thought out. Given the Black Iron prison setting and the fact that the player character, Josh Duhamel's Jacob Lee, spends half the game in a futuristic orange jumpsuit, it was clear in the marketing for the game that the prison setting would be important. In actuality, it's all just aesthetic window dressing and the game could really take place anywhere. Jacob is captured at the start and then doesn't do any hard time before it all kicks off. We literally spend minutes in a cell before the prison becomes a zombie hotbed and you're flung into a traditional sci-fi gauntlet of monsters, dark hallways, and button prompts. We're escaping a prison we never spent any time in, with a character that never knows what it's like to rot there and lose that precious time. That feels like such a missed opportunity. Why wasn't the lead character built around Black Iron? It feels like you're missing out on a key component, that the prison was the stuff of nightmares before the outbreak.
Okay, inmates do not speak unless they are spoken to.
There's been a mistake. My name is Jacob Lee. I'm not an inmate.
You were inmate.
It is about trading one hell for another. How do we get any sense of that if we jump ahead with a character who just got initiated? Shouldn't we have been following the supporting character, Elias, who's planned for so long to escape this hell? He knows it inside and out. We find logs of him talking about how long it took him to plan an escape, thinking about all the contingencies and remembering every inch of the prison with scrupulous detail.
I think I found a way to reach the dawn. Just gotta train to the tank. And then up the ladder to the access hatch.
Elias, you done yet?
Yes, sir. Just wrapping up.
Elias has such a visceral, emotional response to the setting, and the aesthetic of him being in inmate overalls bears so much more weight. He's unceremoniously killed off, but ends up getting the best line in the game as he thanks Jacob for getting him out.
It's because of you. Look at hell.
How powerful is it that Elias would rather face the horrors of the outbreak or die than spend another second bound by the prison? Jacob wants to escape too, but he hasn't had to suffer at the hands of Black Iron anywhere near as much. We could be escaping a mining rig and his journey would be the same. Once you ditch the inmate costume and end up in the more extravagant labs and upper levels, not to mention the original town, there is really nothing to distinguish the fact that we're playing a sci-fi prison horror game. In both versions of Dead Space, Isaac is essential to both the plot and the gameplay. The reason why Isaac survives over a whole team of trained soldiers aboard the Kellion, or even the security team he boards with, is because his skill set is directly applicable to the task at hand. He's a spacefaring engineer. His arsenal is made up of power tools, things he would know how to use and switch up on the fly, and these tools are the single greatest weapon to dismember these creatures.
Calm down. I'll cut you out of there. Is that a tissue laser? A plasma cutter?
Oh my god!
Conversely, Isaac isn't a soldier and he's not used to being in these horrific scenarios. So whether he speaks or not, there's an established relatability there.
Engineer.
Nerd. Figures.
Because he's been thrust into a scary, unprecedented situation, just like the player. He's both suitably equipped to face the Necromorph horde without being an impervious, all-powerful player character. Everything feeds into everything else. We're on a ship that is cracking planets, it needs fixing, we're an engineer, we're using our arsenal to fix those things and rip monsters apart. Even if Isaac wasn't an engineer, a key part of both the first two stories is that his girlfriend, or wife, Nicole, served aboard the Ishimura. He has a substantiated emotional reason to go there. Josh Duhamel gets a flimsy backstory about shipping alien samples to the prison that only pops up a couple of times, and the payoff is ultimately very contrived. You could strip that out of Callisto Protocol and it wouldn't make much of a difference to the experience, whereas Isaac is nothing without Nicole. I recognise that it might be hard to keep up the excitement and tension if we spend half the game in the prison yard, but having that key context to the player in some form could have gone a long way. Imagine if we were playing as Elias and every time we walked into a new section we got a playable flashback, fleshing out the lore of Black Iron and showing just how tough and dangerous it was to be a regular inmate. Each of these moments would help to define his character, and if Elias is facing inmates he's known for years, isn't there a fantastic opportunity for him to meet infected who are perhaps even his friends?
What? You worried you're helping a murderer, Esco?
Hell, it would even make more sense to make Karen Fukuhara the main character, because at least she's a criminal and she's further into that world than Jacob. Also, it would just be awesome to play as Kamiko, I'm not gonna lie, I'd much rather be her than Josh Duhamel.
We can't just kill everyone.
No offense, Mr. Transformers. That bike slide was still pretty sweet. I feel like the player should have the same level of desperation to get out that the inmate does. If that experience could be baked into the entire game, then it would make the prison setting a much more rewarding experience. The comparison shows just how important world building is to a video game. Dead Space has managed to carve a place in gamers' memories for 15 years because of how well thought out every inch of its universe was. I doubt Callisto will have the same longevity with its cookie cutter hero and ultimately generic take on sci-fi horror. If the Callisto Protocol gets a sequel, I would still be intrigued. There's no reason why it couldn't become an awesome series, because with a few fundamental fixes, this world could be really threatening and truly engrossing. It can't feel like it's trading on hand-me-downs from all of Dead Space's best ideas. It needs to carve out its own path, and it needs to lean into what could make it fresh and different, rather than tired and derivative.
Oh, come on!
A big thank you to my full fat tier patron, Dr. Chike. If you'd like to donate money to my Patreon, you can find me at patreon.com/fullfatvideos. If you'd like to find me on Instagram, you can find me at full_fat_videos. And if you'd like to find me on Twitter, you can find me at fullfatvideos.